All right, we're going to begin talking about slope, and some of this is going to be a review from last year. It says the ratio of the vertical change, which we call the rise because we're going up and down, to the horizontal change, the run, determines the slope of the line. And you can see slope as rise over run, or the vertical change over the horizontal change. We also say change in y over change in x, and that little triangle is called delta. Delta y means change in y divided by delta x, which is your change in x. When we talk about slope, I want you to understand that you can find the slope between any points. So this one says, find the slope between the following points. And we're going to first talk about the rise from A to B. So from A to B, we're only looking at the rise, which is 1, 2, 3. And then if we look at the run from A to B, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so my slope, which is rise over run, is 3/4. If I look at the rise from C to D, 1, 2, 3. If I look at the run, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so my slope, rise over run, is 3/4. And then if I look from A to C, okay, I'm going from here all the way up here, but I'm only going to do the rise. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we're going to run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which means my slope is 6 over 8, which simplifies to 3/4. And then if I look from A to D, so from the first point to the last point, we know we already went up 6 here, 7, 8, 9. And we're going to run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So my slope is 9 over 12, which simplifies to 3/4. So every time my slope, or my m, is 3/4, and it doesn't matter what 2 points you pick, as long as you do rise over run and then you simplify it, it will work out the same. All right, slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b, where m is your slope and b is your y-intercept. So slope is always in front of x if it's in y equals mx plus b form. So here, I really want you to start writing your slope as a fraction, because that is rise over run, especially when we talk about a graph. So here my slope is 2. And if I were to write that as a fraction, my rise would be 2, my run would be 1. And my y-intercept is 3, but a y-intercept is a point. Just like here, the y-intercept on the graph up above is point B, and that point is 0, 2. And so I really need you to write your y-intercept as an ordered pair. So here my y-intercept is 0, 3. The next one, my slope is 3/4 because it's in front of x. My y-intercept is 0, -7. Letter C, my slope is an invisible 1 in front of x. If I were to write this as a fraction, 1 over 1, I rise 1, run 1. And that's what we're talking about with fractions. Up on letter B, we rise 3, we run 4. My y-intercept is 0, 5. On letter D, y equals -8. The m has disappeared, which means I could have y equals 0x minus 8. But we don't write 0x because anything times 0 is 0. So my slope here is 0. My y-intercept is 0, -8. Letter E, my slope is -1. If I put this as a fraction, it's -1 over 1. This time I'm not rising, I'm falling 1 and running 1. And my y-intercept, there's nothing being added, which means it's 0, 0. And then the very last one I threw in there, it's not slope-intercept form, but if there is no y, then that means that this whole thing is undefined. and that there is no y-intercept. So there are 4 types of slope, and we kind of hit on each of those up above. The first type of slope is a positive slope. Okay. The next type of slope is negative. And let me go back and explain this a little bit more. Positive, meaning it's increasing from left to right. We always read a graph from left to right, just like a book. And so if I follow this graph from left to right, it's going up, so it's positive slope. And if I follow this graph from left to right, it's going down, which gives it a negative slope. And then if I have a flat line, I have a 0 slope. It is not increasing, it is not decreasing, it's just 0, it's flat. And then the last one is if I have a vertical line, it is undefined. So let's go into a little bit more detail with each of these slopes. This one here, again, we read from left to right, and it is increasing, which means it has a positive slope. I can pick any 2 points on this line. Okay, so I could pick this point here, negative 4, 2, and I can pick 0, 3. And if I plot those points and I count rise over run, I'm going to rise 1, run 1, 2, 3, 4. So my slope is rise over run. I'm going to rise 1, run 4. My slope is 1/4. My y-intercept is here. Where do we cross the y-axis? Okay, we cross the y-axis at 3, but again, I want to write an order pair, so 0, 3. And then we're going to put it into the equation. And remember, our equation is y equals mx plus b. So my equation here is y equals m is 1/4 x plus b. b is a positive 3. And then we can take these equations and we can graph them in the calculator to check and see if they match. And we'll talk more about that when you come in to class on Monday. Okay, let's go over to the next one. This one, if we read it from left to right, it is decreasing. So that means it has a negative slope. And rate is the same thing as slope. But this time, since it's negative, we are going to fall and run. We're not going to rise, we're going to fall. So I still need to pick 2 points. So I'm going to pick negative 1, 2, and 1, negative 4. And I always want to go up and down first. So if I go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I'm going to fall 6, and I'm going to run 1, 2. And I simplify that, and that would give me negative 3. Which means really I could have come here and I could have counted down 1, 2, 3 and run 1, and I would get to a new point. And I'm looking for points that are exactly on the corners. That point is a special point. That's your y-intercept, your b value, 0, negative 1. And now that I have my slope and my y-intercept, I can write the equation. Y equals negative 3x minus 1. All right, I have a flat line, meaning it is not increasing, it is not decreasing, it's doing nothing. It has a 0 slope. And that's what I write here. I write 0. If I were to try to count the rise and the run, I would rise nothing, run 2. Well, if I rise nothing, that's 0 over 2, which means just 0. My y-intercept, where does it cross the y-axis? Is right here at 2, but the order pair is 0, 2. And then when I talk about my equation, y equals 0x plus 2, but we never write 0x, so we would just say y equals 2. And the very last one, I have a vertical line. And so this slope is undefined. So here I'll write undefined. My y-intercept, there is no y-intercept. And so if I don't have a y-intercept and my slope is undefined, my equation is x equals. And it's x equals where it crosses the x-axis. So this one crosses at 1, 2, 3, so my equation is x equals 3. And we're really going to talk about how to graph all of these and check them in the calculator.